So this is a bit of a niche effect. However, the premise of it, it's a bit of a niche effect in this use, but the premise of it can be used across so many different videos, types and effects and all that. So yeah, it's a great one, and it's another one that I love. And so I brought in this footage, and it's probably just really to, I don't know, I was going to say make me feel better, but it's probably not going to, because I haven't traveled for so long. But I'm going to right click, you'll see what I mean. Right click and new sequence from clip, and just seriously, what I wouldn't give to be doing that right now. And it's this that we're looking at. We're looking at the point where he hits the water, because we want to affect this. We want to kind of just make it more than what it is. And this effect, although we're going for him diving into the water, nice straight legs, well done. I think mine will be bent. But it could be used for anything. It could be like an impact, someone dropping down on a jump, or if it's a music video, it could be a beat on maybe the drums, or like a strum of a guitar, or a crash of a cymbal, or even in a music video where it kind of tells something and you slam a door, or anything like that. It's mainly it's used for impact and emphasis. So that's what this is. And it's effectively displacement ripple, and it affects the whole video. So how do we do this? Well, first and foremost, we're going to duplicate that, and we're going to right click and replace with After Effects composition, because we're working in After Effects for this one. And before we go any further, I need to address something in After Effects, and that is a plugin that I haven't mentioned, which is completely 100% free, as long as you don't mind giving a company your email address. And they're brilliant. They're a great company. I never get any spam from them, and they're called Video Copilot. And what I'm going to tell you to get, and there's a link in the course outline, and it's called FX Console, or FX Console. And what it saves you doing is going up here and searching for something, or up here and searching for an effect to apply, and a whole host of things. And I'm going to show you now. Let me just bring it in, and it's called FX Console. Okay, and the link in the course will bring you to this, and all you have to do is download, for whether you're on a PC or a Mac, hit the download that you want, and let me just drag that down, and it starts to download. So I'm going to open this zip and say, yeah, okay, I will buy it at some point, and just double click it. And it brings up, you probably couldn't see that, but it brings up just something to say, do you want to install a program that's trying to install? You say, yeah, and you press, I agree. And this is the 22 version. So yeah, I want that, and finish. Let me just check. Okay, does that work now, or do I need to restart? I think I need to restart. Come back in a second. Okay, just restarted. It is working, and I will show you it very soon. So what are we doing? Well, first and foremost, we're going to get rid of this guy as soon as I find out where we want to be. And that's right here. What am I talking about? Well, let's just create a solid, and I'll tell you what we mean. So if we right click here and go to new and solid, remember a solid is just like in After Effects, in Premiere Pro, new item and a color matte. It's exactly pretty much the same. So what we'll do is right click, new and solid. We're just going to have it as a white solid, and we're just going to call this ripple, although it's not. It's, if I press enter, it's a white solid, but don't worry, we'll get there. So why have we got the playhead at this point? Well, if I just hide this for a moment, we're at this point where he hits the water, and this is where I want to be to sort out where we're going to start this ripple, which will then become our displacement ripple. And it's at this point here. So let me just turn back on this solid. I'm just going to take down the opacity, and to do that, remember, we just press T on the keyboard with the layer selected that we want, and then just drag that down. You can drag it all the way down if you want, but I'm going to drag it down to about 40%, just so we can see. Because what we're going to do now is we're going to create a mask. And to do that, we're going to come up here and we're going to create an ellipse mask. Now, this is a square. Well, yeah, we can select square and start to draw a square. Obviously, this is still the opacity that we've set. It's absolutely fine, but we don't want a square. That's actually effectively a rectangle because it's freeform. If you wanted a square, you just hold down Shift and it would go along the Y-axis at the same rate as it goes along the X-axis, effectively creating a square. The same works with an ellipse tool. If we go with an ellipse tool here, if we just drag it out, we're creating an ellipse, so a rounded shape of any kind of width and height. However, if we hold down Shift, we create a perfect circle. And that's what we want. So I'm just going to create that now here. I'm going to come back to my selection tool, and here is my ellipse. But we want his hands right in the middle of the ellipse. Now the thing is, if I start to drag this now, we start to kind of change the shape of it, and we don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click it, and now not only do we have the sizing, hold down Shift, gets it exactly how we want it. Not only can we size it overall, but we also have this little guy, and this is our anchor point. As you can see, if I mouse over, we have our anchor point. If we go up to here to a corresponding pan behind anchor point tool. But what we're actually using this for is to gauge the center of this mask. So I'm just going to drag this down right to his hands. Okay, that's all we need this for. So now we're going to take the opacity all the way up, and we're going to hide this fella. Just for now, don't worry, he will be back. And the thing is, now that we've come out of this mask, you can see that actually the anchor point is still up here. It's in the center of the main composition. Doesn't matter, we're not looking at that, we're looking at the mask. And if we double click this again, we get the center around here, and that's what we care about. So first what we're going to do is we're going to size this up for the whole of the screen from this center. How do we do that? Well, if we zoom out a little bit, you can also use the percentages here to go to like 12.5 or whatever. You can also, don't forget, you can use the scroll wheel on your mouse if you have a mouse, or the the tracking or scrolling functionality of a trackpad. It's normally 2 fingers up or down to scroll in and out. And we're just going to size this up. Now, if we grab this and start to pull, we now come away from that center. And we don't want to do that. So with a mask, what we do is we hold down, if we start to drag and we hold down Control, we're now going out from the center, but we're going out in an ellipse, and we don't want to go out in an ellipse. We want to go out in a perfect circle. So while still holding Control, hold Shift, and we're now going out from the center, and we just want to go out enough to cover the whole screen, the whole window of composition. Okay, so that's what we want. Now what we're going to do is we're going to mask this path. Okay, so I want to start from here. This is my starting point. I don't want anything else before it. So first and foremost, we're going to trim the beginning. Now what we can do is we can pull this all the way up like this, just like we would in Premiere Pro, to kind of shorten a clip either from the end or from the beginning. No, not that. This. Or we can also, if I undo that, we can use the keyboard shortcut of Alt or Option on a Mac and the left bracket, square bracket, not over the numbers, but next to P. And if we press the left bracket and Alt or Option, it trims from the beginning, and it doesn't move everything from the back to the beginning. It just trims that beginning. So that's where we want to start this mask. Okay, and what we want to do is I want to keyframe this mask. So I need to get the mask path. Easiest way to do that, remember, if we press P on the keyboard, it brings up our position with the layer selected. If we press M, it brings back up the mask and it gives us our mask path, and that's what we want. So we're going to set a keyframe right there. We're then going to go forward a little bit, maybe to about here, and then we're going to set another keyframe. Okay, so that's what we want it to go out to. So now if we use this navigation and click back to the first keyframe, we're now going to size this mask down. And to do that, we double click it again while we can see it, obviously while it's highlighted on our layer selection. And we're going to hold down Control and Shift again, and we're going to size this right down. It doesn't matter where my mouse goes, it's keeping a full perfect circle. Now as we get really close, we need to kind of zoom in a little bit. So letting go of Control and Shift and my mouse and my left mouse button, just going to zoom in a little bit. Don't forget you can use the space bar and click and drag to drag everything around. And I'm just going to continue to take it all the way down to like there. I mean, it's tiny. If we go back now to fit, you can see over a course of just under a second, we go all the way out. Okay. I want to make sure that that's right on there. That's good. And again, just play that and we're all the way out. So that's the start of our mask. But now we're going to use the mask to work against itself. Okay. Bear with me. So this mask, we're going to duplicate this mask. So with mask there, don't forget if you've lost it and it's all closed up, just press M on your keyboard with the solid, or what we've renamed ripple, highlighted or selected, and it will bring up this mask path. We're going to click on mask 1 and we're going to duplicate by holding Control and D to duplicate. Now we have mask 2. We want the mask path again. So now with this selected, we want to see both mask paths, and you can see here that there are keyframes, but we can't edit them because they're not fully shown. We're just being shown that there are keyframes. We need to kind of get them so they're looking like this diamond again. So if we press M, it'll close it up. Press it again, and it opens out all masks on this path. Okay? So now what we're going to do is I'm going to offset these two keyframes. Bear with me with this, it will all become very clear. So if I now move this off a couple of frames, now you can see that this mask, the top mask, is already growing by this point, and this, the duplicated mask, is following hot on its heels. Okay? But we want this mask to be different to this mask. I don't think I've ever said mask as many times in my life in one kind of statement, but it's worth it. So what we want to do is, by default, a mask is add, or it's added. It's in its default state of adding. What we want to do is the second mask, we want to subtract. And because of the way that it's laid out, if we just drop this down and click subtract, we've now got a ring rather than a full circle. And now if we play this back, it creates that effect. Looks good, doesn't it? Now, it's still quite thick when we get towards the end, and I kind of don't really want that. And the way in which we can affect that is if we take the last keyframe on the first mask and start pulling that out. As you can see, both the subtract mask and the adding mask get to the end at the same time. So by the time we get to here, it's just a thin little line. I'm going to drag it out just a little bit more, keep a little bit of thickness, and then we're out. So play that again. Boom. Looks good. So that's the start of our ripple. If we bring our fella back and play this, maybe play it back from here as he goes through. Boom. Now, actually, I think it's a little bit fat at that point. I want the effect to start here. I mean, like, you know, a bit chunky there. So I kind of want to start it there. Let's start that again. Boom. Okay, that's how I want it. Now, if that's the effect that you want, it's not a displacement map, but, you know, that'll work for you. Go for it. But we're going to go one step further, and we're going to make this affect the whole scene, not just by wiping a shape over it. So the way in which we do this is we need to pre-compose this. So what we're going to do is we're going to pre-compose this solid. And that just means we can affect it all together. Okay, so we're going to right click and we're going to pre-compose. And we're just going to call this ripple animation. Kind of does what it says on the tin, doesn't it? And we're going to move all attributes into the new composition. We want all the attributes, all the masks, all the keyframes, everything inside it. Don't open the new composition. We don't need to do that. Just press OK. And that's done. As you can see, it actually creates the full it creates the composition for the full length. It's just kind of a default because remember, when you create anything new on here, in After Effects, it creates it for the full duration. I'm just going to shorten that up, remember, by hitting Alt or holding down Alt. Don't hit it, you'll break your keyboard. Hold down Alt and the left bracket, and it just kind of closes it up. So that's fine. It still is running there underneath, but it's just saying I don't want it. Okay, and that's that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create an adjustment layer. Do you remember what an adjustment layer is? Remember in Premiere Pro, to put it in context, if I just duplicate that out and create an adjustment layer, right click and adjustment layer, press OK, drag this adjustment layer on here. I remember what this does, just the full length, thank you very much. And the adjustment layer affects anything below it. So say we've got the adjustment layer selected and we change up the exposure, maybe take down the highlights, the shadows, up the saturation. That's probably the worst color grade I've ever done in my life. But that's only on the adjustment layer. If I take away the adjustment layer, it doesn't affect the clip. So yeah, just to remind you what adjustment layer is. Let's just undo all that. Go back to After Effects, and we're going to similarly, you actually do it in the timeline in here. You can do it up here somewhere, but right click and new and adjustment layer. And we're now going to rename this as our displacement map, because that's what we're going to add onto here. And this is where FX Console comes in. And okay, we had to do a few clicks to get it installed and had to restart. But from this point on, whenever you need anything like what I'm going to show you now, you don't have to go up here or up to here and try and find it. You just literally select what you want to add to. So in this scenario, we've got our adjustment layer, which is called the displacement map. And wherever your mouse pointer is, even if it's up here, it's going to bring up the FX console where that is. And all you have to do is hold down Control and press spacebar, and it brings up this. Those of you who are Mac users, you'll understand Spotlight. So it's Spotlight search. It's kind of Spotlight search in After Effects. For those of you in Windows who don't know, you can get something called Power Toys. It's not actually built in. And if you press Alt and Spacebar, you get the exact same thing, but in Windows. But in here, it's FX Console and it's Control and Spacebar. So what we're going to search for is a displacement map. And just like that, it comes up in here and you just need to single click it. You don't need to drag it on or anything, just single click it. And it's now been applied to our adjustment layer called displacement map. And what we need to do now is we need to select it, go up to effects controls, and now we have this bit of text in our effects controls. So in our effects controls, it defaults as the source is itself. So we want to change that. We want to change that to our ripple animation. This is why it's really important to name your things, just because it's just easy to find in drop downs. Drop that down and select ripple animation. And with that done, what we want to do then is change what we want for the displacement. We don't want it red and green, which is what the default is. What we want is we want to select luminance, because that's what we're going to be affecting with this displacement map. We're affecting the luminance of this, and this ripple animation is now the source. So if you select them both and select luminance, and then we're going to change our maximum horizontal displacement to 30 and select 30 for the vertical as well. Boom, done. And now we have something that looks like this, which you can start to see that we've got something happening, but it's not quite right. And that's because we need to hide our ripple animation. And now if we play this back, we have the effect. How good is that? Watch again. Brilliant. Now, those eagle-eyed among you would have seen that as it's coming out, it's kind of like a magnifier. And as we're coming out, you can see that we've got these black bars. And to sort that out, we have a little tool that we use, and we need to highlight our clip, because that's the clip that's being displaced. And what we're going to do is we use what's called a motion tile. So with that highlighted, we go for Control and Space again, so much easier, and type in motion tile and literally just click it and it applies it. And with that, rather than 100 in our width and our height for the output, we're just going to change that to 150. Nothing changes there because we're not at the width. But if we go to the height and press 150, have a look down here. If I press enter, now we're kind of coloring that in, but it's still not the right color. If we hit mirror edges, boom. What does that do? Well, what's actually happening behind is it's mirroring. So this is being tiled. So you see this color up here, that's the color down here. And you see the color up here, that's the color down there. But if we mirror the edges, we fill them in. So the top is reflected against itself. So if you imagine this is duplicated and flipped above itself, and the bottom is duplicated above itself. If I grab this and press scale and start to size it down, you can see what I mean. See how this is there and up there, and yeah, you see how the bottom and the top are being reflected against itself. It's just a little trick. And if we play that back now, I've pressed 0 on the keyboard, by the way, on the number pad. It's kind of a pre-render, but it kind of plays in pre-render live time. I love this effect. It's just so good. Just boom. And because we place it there right at the beginning, and if I bring this back, you can see what's being read. See here? That's why we kind of placed it right at that point. And if you play it through slowly, you can see that we're actually, it's like a magnification of that bit. Now, if you don't necessarily want the harsh lines here, then it's really quite simple. All we do is we turn this back on so we can see it, double click to come back in, and on our ripple, on our masks, obviously I pressed M to do that to bring out the masks. If we press F, it brings out our mask feather. Okay, and watch the edges now as we drag these out. Just going to drag out that, and that affects the top because it's affecting the outside edge, because this doesn't know that it's got an inside edge because it's been cut out. So now we need to feather the second mask, which is a subtract mask, which is going into the first mask. And now we've got a kind of feathered edge. If we now close it, we don't have to close it, but I'll close that now and then hide it again. If we come back now, you see how it's almost like a wave there. If I play it back now, I may have feathered that a little bit too much, but can you see what's happening there? Boom. Actually, that looks quite good. I like that. I love it. Great. Now we can take this one step further if we wanted to. Okay, just if we wanted to. I'm not saying you have to, but if we get these two and press M on our keyboard, and obviously we have our mask. If we select mask 1 and mask 2 and by holding Control, and then we press Control D again, we've now created masks 3 and 4. If we grab them while they're both selected and drag them down, we have 3 and 4 here. Okay, now as you can see, we have our keyframes, but you can't quite see them. I'm going to press M and then M again so we can see them all. And if we offset this even further, you've now got 2 lots of it. See how that's gone through there? Yeah. If we Control and S there, come back and see how that's affected it. You see how it goes out again? Let me come back. We're kind of doubling the thing, but you see how it creates it over and over again. You know what I'm going to do, don't you? I'm going to Control and S that to save it. I'm going to come back to our Premiere Pro because I always rely on Premiere Pro to do a decent pre-rendering. I'm going to set an out point there and hold Control and Enter and let that pre-render. And looking that back again, we have our double displacement going straight through. such a great effect. I absolutely love it. It's brilliant. And don't forget, you know, I mean, we've feathered these edges to kind of give it more of a ripple. I probably want to do that because it's water. If you don't necessarily want to feather those edges, if you don't want it as much of a ripple, you can just leave them harsh, take off that feathering, and it'll be absolute definite. But yeah, that is your displacement ripple effect. I absolutely love it.